I'm Julie.
And I'm Melanie.
And we're Moms on a Mission,
empowered to bring abundance to our families.
Braid girls! We are super excited. We are in Melanie's studio today, which is a total change up. She has such pretty pink walls as a change from my Arctic blue ones.
I love your blue.
Oh, thank you. I love it too, but sometimes it's just nice to be in something that doesn't make you turn the heater up a little bit. You know? Yeah, I'm just going to turn it on and let it be going, and then we can, that way, because I got to have it done tonight because your program comes out, well, it's already out, but it's over on Wednesday.
Yep, but I'm going to set up a landing page where they can get on the wait list.
Oh, good.
So, okay, don't feel like you have to have it done right now.
I'm going to have it done right now. I'm going to do it tonight.
You do whatever you want.
All right. So, all of you, please welcome Melanie back on the channel.
It's been a while.
It's been
very exciting.
a little while. We used to do a show called Braid Girls 2.5, 3 years ago.
It was a while ago.
And Melanie's channel is Road to the Farm, and she is amazing. She is one of those people that I just love everything that she comes out with because it's really in tune with what I'm looking for my own family. And when I first met you, you were kind of sick.
I was very sick. And I had recovered a lot. Like that was my healthy.
Yeah.
So yeah, 8 years ago, I was actually completely laid out in bed. I couldn't take care of my kids. Hours would pass by and I would wake up and I would forget that I had kids until they came marching in, and I would go, oh, like what's going on here and who's been taking care of you? And so they were, eating cereal out of a box and fixing each other peanut butter sandwiches just to get through the days. Thankfully, I found a book that helped me find a doctor, and that doctor put me on a path to health where I changed my diet and I went gluten and dairy free. I did an elimination diet so that I really knew what my body reacted to and what it responded well with. And from there, I just every year had continued health. And within the first month, I was back on my feet again. I was lucid and present and able to cook the meals that we needed. And food became my passion, especially food that can heal. I had autoimmune hypothyroidism, so that was really severe, and a lot of the energy drain that I was dealing with, as well as, I had weight gain, I had hair loss, all of those issues that come along with thyroid issues. And that reversed pretty quickly. I was still dealing with a lot of the fatigue and stuff. The fibromyalgia was completely debilitating, and but yeah, so it is still the diagnosis, but it's in complete remission, which I was in stage 4. It doesn't get worse than stage 4. But now, today, I have both in remission completely. You can test my thyroid numbers, and they are, even on a functional test where they can test everything, it's functioning the way that it ought to be. So yeah, absolute miracle.
So in this journey that you've taken, there's been some really bland food. I remember listening to you talk about lentils a lot. Was it the lentils?
No, we're actually allergic to lentils. So we just did a ton of vegetables and a ton of grass-fed and pastured meats.
Okay.
And that was the thing. For the first year, I was sugar-free, and that's all it was. It was the fruits and vegetables and the meats, and lots of broths and stuff like that. And that was really what turned the tide for me.
Right. And you have kids. Melanie has a large family and also a husband who has been unwell at times because of diet.
Right.
And so what we wanted to share with you today is that Melanie, in this journey that she's made, she started out as a baker before she got sick, and then had to eliminate all those amazing foods that add variety and give you family traditions. She had to eliminate all of those from her family's diet. And with trial and error, over the course of the time that we've known each other, it seems like, there's been trial and error to find something delicious. And now she's even come up with something that's beautiful. It looks as pretty as the real thing. It tastes as good as the real thing. But there's some specific things that her recipes do not have in them. They're not conventional. They're not fully rice with xanthan gum and guar gum and all the other additives that are sometimes put in as binders. It's as much about her method, I think, as it is about the ingredients, although it is about the ingredients, but her method of doing it, because if you're a normal baker, a conventional baker, you know there's certain things you need to do to your ingredients to make them work. Well, gluten-free ingredients have different things that need to happen to them that conventional flours don't. It's a whole new set of rules.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. So that's where I find that the gluten-free community has been completely gypped, because we're handed this flour that doesn't work, and then we're handed a chemical and they say, okay, now put this xanthan gum in there, which is not a natural product. Put this xanthan gum in there and it'll make it stick together.
Right.
Which it does make it stick together, but it doesn't allow the natural properties of the flours that we're using to actually be utilized. And so you end up with gritty cookies, you end up with dry cakes, you end up with things that are dense and heavy, things that don't rise the way that they ought to, and they taste lousy.
Glue.
Yeah.
It's like you just ate glue.
Yeah. There's, and your chance of success is very low. So you go set out to bake something, you're all excited, and you have a special occasion where you want to share something with friends or family, or you just want to bake something special for your kid's birthday, and you don't know if it's going to turn out.
It's inconsistent. The results are very inconsistent.
Very inconsistent. And so by learning to work with your flour, you can eliminate all of that. None of that has to come into play, but you have to stop baking with conventional methods. And it's not like huge tweaks. We still come out with the results that we want. We come out with pie crust that's flaky and has that buttery mouthfeel. So the result is the same, and there's similar methods, but there's a few tweaks that you have to do to really make it work.
And you have some unconventional actual blends. The actual blends that you use of the flours that you combine together are also unique, aren't they?
So I have my own flour blend that I've created, and I use it for everything. So I can use it for pancakes, or I can use it for cake, or I can use it for the pie crust or rolled out sugar cookies. All of those things work wonderfully with the singular flour blend. So some people don't like this word and some people love it, but when I go in the kitchen, I feel normal again. I get to walk in there, I have one flour bucket that I scoop my flour out of, and I just get to bake. And when I go in, I feel confident that it's going to turn out. And when we eat it, the results are what we expected.
Right.
We have the experience that we expected. So yeah, my flour blend is made with brown rice flour, not white rice, because you get so much more nutrition from the brown. But not only that, it's much more absorbent. And so you get all the fiber and the minerals and vitamins from the outer layer of the rice. And you also get all of the nutrition that's there, but you get all of the natural properties that the fiber brings with it. So it holds things together better. And it absorbs moisture so that it's not dry.
Right.
So we're able to use the brown rice flour even for really tender cakes. And so that works really good. I do have potato starch. We only have a small amount in there in comparison to the flour. You can substitute it with tapioca as well. But what that does is it gives things nice crisp edges. It helps hold things together since we don't have any gluten in there. And then I use sweet rice flour, which is just another variety of rice, is all it is. But there's a small amount of that because it's much stickier. It absorbs water faster and it holds things together a little better.
Is that the one they make mochi out of?
Yes. Yep. So a mochi rice flour, or Mochi Co. is the brand that you can go buy. But it's got a very sweet flavor to it, and it doesn't turn out very nice things if you use it on its own. It produces really dense, sticky things.
Right.
And so we use a little bit of it with the natural properties that it has, but we don't use a lot. And then I add coconut flour is the smallest amount. That is wonderful. It has antioxidant properties and it helps balance your blood sugar. It's very high in fiber. It's also high in protein, which is so important to have protein in your flour and baking. There's so many different ingredients that react to the protein. If you don't have that, then you struggle to get good results. So it's also very thirsty flour. It can absorb just huge amounts of liquid. So it'll hold on to the liquid long enough for the rice flour to be able to absorb it, and that way you don't have gritty baked goods.
Melanie's here today because we have a glut of pie cherries that we needed to use up, and when I made the pie, all I did was mix up pancake batter and pour it over the top of it, and it turned out just fine. But I have been watching Melanie's Facebook and Instagram feeds, and make sure to go check that out. It's Road to the Farm on Facebook.
Everywhere.
And on Instagram, everywhere. So make sure to go check those out if you want to see their pictures. They're amazing. And she had all these beautiful flaky crusts, and I'm looking at that and thinking, maybe we could do better than pancake batter. So Melanie has come today to show us how she does up her dough and her pie crust, and there's certain parts of it we're not going to show just because Melanie has a course where you can go and learn the whole process. If you don't have the full process, you can't really put it all together because you need to really have the holistic understanding of how to do it. It is not the same as conventional baking.
Right. So in the course, I start from the very beginning. We start with ingredients and we start with equipment, and then we move on from there and we layer on a little bit at a time so that you understand the core concepts. Because I feel like if you get in the kitchen, if you don't understand what you're doing, your recipe might turn out or it might not. What if you didn't quite have enough water in there? What if the recipe in your area doesn't have enough moisture for where you're at? Or what if you live somewhere that it's very humid and you're baking on a really humid day and you just follow a recipe? You're gonna have varying results. And so that's why I'm so passionate about teaching people how to actually bake and to know how to make adjustments, how to have consistent results every time. And like you said, there's different methods that we use. So if you want rice flour, which the bulk of mine is rice, a whole rice, but rice nonetheless, if you want that to absorb liquid, there's 3 different ways that it can absorb liquid. So it'll absorb through mixing. So time in the mixer and agitation, that'll help it absorb. It'll absorb through resting. So again, just time, just sitting. So there's some recipes you want to mix and really agitate it. There's some you want it to just rest and just give it time to absorb. And then there's, we also use heat sometimes. So all of those 3 things come into play. So knowing when to mix, when to rest, when to heat, all of that is really important for getting those consistent results.
Moves the camera to the other side of the room.
It'll do that to you, won't it? Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's cruel.
Let me.
I think it's the water boiling.
Okay. So do we want to wait until?
Yeah, you can shut it. Well, yeah, let's let it get to a full rolling boil because then it'll be hot enough we won't have to leave it on anymore. All right, so we're gonna start assembling the pie crust. And you can see that I've got a scale under here. I always weigh my my powdered ingredients, my dry ingredients, because gluten-free flours compact way more than a wheat flour. Wheat flour is more of a flaky consistency, where a gluten-free flour, you have to grind it super duper fine so that it can absorb moisture. So if you sift the flour, it's actually gonna sit there and it's gonna line all up in these tiny little particles, and it's gonna compress that much more. So I always weigh my flour, and that way I know I'm not overstuffing my, whatever it is, my pastry or my pie crust or my cake with flour, because you can fit a whole extra ounce of flour into 1 cup measurement, and that's going to make things really dense and really dry, and there's no way to hydrate that much extra flour. So I've got it on the scale. I've got the bowl here. I'm going to zero it out, and that's a great tip even if you don't use gluten-free flours. It's just it's so fast. So we're going to get our flour in. So it removes a lot of that concern or that worry that is so often there, and where you're wondering, is this going to turn out or not? And you use a scale, it increases your chances of success exponentially. And like I said, I love eggs in my ingredients or in my baked goods. It adds fat without breaking down the flour, and it adds a lot of nutrition. So if you can't do chicken eggs, try a duck egg. And this is just nice warm water.
So you have all the baking soda and baking powder and multiple flours already in this mix, and that's why it's so simple.
There's no baking soda or baking powder in there at all. So because we're doing the pie crust,
Okay.
we want the fat to be what creates the dimension in it. So yeah, I've already mixed up my flour blend. And like I said, I love it because I mix up an entire bucket of it. And that way we only mix it once a month and we just scoop straight out of the bucket.
I'm gonna show them really quick.
Yep.
Literally.
Yep, a bucket.
The bucket.
So right now we're building structure. Like I said, we start with liquid. It's so important that there's no fat in here whatsoever. And you can see it behaves like flour. I still get giddy over that. So this is so backwards to conventional pie crust. Conventional pie crust, you start with the fat because gluten is something that is so strong that if you don't inhibit the gluten, then you end up with a very tough product unless you're doing something like bread. And so we start with the fat in a conventional pie crust because it's going to break down that gluten and it's going to reduce its power and its hold. Here, we're doing everything we can to create that structure, and then we'll introduce fat.
Now with regular pie crust, it's always about don't touch it too much because
Right.
it'll make it tough. But you're saying that with yours, you actually knead it pretty good.
Yes, so that's one thing that I found with gluten-free flours is they need to be worked a lot. And even for very delicate things, you're gonna spend a lot more time in the mixing bowl, or you're gonna spend more time with your hands in the dough. So this is super delicate right now. That's why I'm gonna use the mat. Just because it makes my job easier.
Do you have this mat in your Etsy store on your website? Or not Etsy, Amazon store?
Yes, it is on my store on my website.
Because it's a little bit different from the other ones that I've seen. It's
Yeah.
significantly larger.
Yes, so I'll get cinnamon rolls on here and roll the whole thing up. It takes like a minute to roll up a cinnamon roll. And it's amazing for pie crust. It's got all the measurements all the way around, and it comes with guides that you can, so you can have the perfect thickness. And yeah, I know the lady who owns the company. She's the sweetest thing ever, and so worthwhile.
So are you doing this so that it doesn't stick to your finger so you can incorporate more flour, or?
Just because it's easier to work with. I could do all of this by hand, but it doesn't stick to the mat, and so it's a lot more efficient to get it started this way. And then pretty soon it'll be really easy to handle. And
So how long did it take you to figure this out? Because no one will have watched their grandma do it this way, and yet I've seen what you've turned out with it.
yeah,
And it's no harder than what grandma did, it's just different.
right, just a different method. It took me 3 years to figure this one out. So lots of failed pies. And the thing that's so hard with gluten-free dough is that when you get it to come together, so often then you put pie crust or pie filling into it, and all the liquids then just disintegrate your dough. And you end up with this gummy layer at the bottom of your pie instead of a pie crust. And that's not what we want. And so that's a lot of the trial and error, was doing that. And a lot of people resort to ingredients like psyllium husk. But again, that's gonna make it tough for something like this. You have to have crazy amounts of moisture to make psyllium husk be, fully hydrated. And so that's why it took me so long to figure this out, because I wanted flaky and I wanted buttery, and I didn't want xanthan gum, and I didn't want psyllium husk or chia seeds or any of those things. I just wanted a pure pie crust.
With this flour, you're using it pretty generously. What is the cost per pound, do you think, on your flour mix if people make it up themselves?
So the most I've ever paid for this is $2 a pound for my flour. Most gluten-free flours run you anywhere from $6 to $8 a pound. Some of the really premium ones are going to cost you even more than that. And so this pie crust, you know, I haven't even come close to a pound of flour yet. It's going to cost about $1, $1.50 worth of flour, and that's it. Okay, that is beautiful. So I'll dump the flour off now. Another reason I love my mat. And you can easily substitute the coconut in my flour blend. I know a lot of people have trouble with coconut flour or coconut products. So you can use avocado oil in this place. This is coconut flour.
Can you get a spoon?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
A clean one? Are you sure? I don't know why my kid says in the back of the drawer that wasn't clean.
Oh, yeah, because they're kids. Okay. So now we're going to start incorporating the fat. And that's what we do in a conventional pie crust. You use butter generally or lard, but it takes hardly anything to get gluten to hold together. It just grabs on so tight. So it's already got the structure there, and then it creates these lovely little fat pockets. And as the fat dissolves and melts into your pie crust, that's what leaves you with those flaky layers. Like I said, I get my hands in everything. But that way you get all of the hard bits out of the coconut oil. And the dough right now, you know, it's got some cracks and it's dry and it's kind of tough. And that's the point. That's where we wanted to get it to, so that it could absorb and hold all of this fat in here.
So you were talking earlier about how you had to reverse engineer it because the physical and chemical properties of the flour are so different from gluten. And we were talking about how with the conventional pie crust you would add the fat first because you want you want the flour incorporated as a crumb type of a situation with the fat, and then you might add a little bit of water at the end. So this is completely a different animal.
Right.
The end result looks exactly the same.
Yep.
It looks amazing, but it is a completely different animal. I've never seen any kind of baking done where you add the fat at the end,
right?
By making by rubbing it into your pie sheet. This is super fun to watch.
Yeah, it's totally different, but you get the results that you want. Because when we're eating, you know, it's about so much more than the flavor. The first thing you do is you look at your food and you smell your food, and then you take it into your mouth, and the texture needs to be right. And the taste is important, but it's one of 5 senses. I mean, we eat with all of our senses. And so when we eat pie crust, we want to hear that crisp, and we want to feel the moistness of the fat as it's rich in our mouth. And when we look at it, we want to roll it out and make it beautiful. And we want to be able to, you know, put pretty edges on it. And so all of that is so important. Coconut oil has a tendency to get these lumps in it. And so if you do this, you get the lumps out, and that way you don't have them in your dough. Because then when you roll it, it becomes a void. I still get giddy at how well it holds together.
It looks amazing. And it looks like it's so much more fun to work with than pie crust, because pie crust can be really finicky. It's known for being tough very quickly if you handle it too much. So if you had a dough that you needed to work with quite a bit and you couldn't really overwork it, then it would be a saving grace for somebody who in conventional cooking could never get a delicate pie crust.
Yeah, if you're somebody with a heavy hand who couldn't get a delicate pie crust, then you don't have a lot to worry about here. You know, it doesn't have a lot of stretch to it, so it's a little bit of a different method. You know, it's a lot of pressing. But yeah, it's so fun to work with, because when you follow the methods, there's not a lot that can go wrong. And this is where it becomes smooth and beautiful. And without gluten, it rolls out so easy. That's another thing that's super fun. There's no research that I can point to,
Right.
and be like, so this is why this. Made it all up in my kitchen. I mean, I learned a little bit. No, I've learned a lot from a lot of people, but I put the pieces together in my own house and my own experiments. Okay. Okay, so this is gonna be a little tricky because this is really deep.
It's really not a pie pan, and I'm trying to think if I have anything. The only other thing I have is square.
No, this is, I'll get it in there. We'll probably have to fix a few cracks, but that's okay.
Sorry, I should have thought of that.
No.
Okay, the woman who doesn't make pie doesn't remember that pie tins are a thing.
Oh, don't worry about it. I actually, one of my favorites is cast iron pans.
That's usually what I use,
Yeah,
is my cast iron pan.
yeah.
I have it, but I'd have to wash it.
No, it's fine. They bake up beautifully. I love them. Okay, so now it's time to transfer in. This is deeper than a pie dish, so we're gonna expect to see a little bit of cracking. You would with a wheat crust as well. So that's what comes with that much fat in there. You lose some of your structure, but that's what makes it so delicious. And pie crust is always repairable. So.
I bet it would make a really good chicken pot pie if it was that deep.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, it would be amazing. And we enjoy it so much that we just throw it in the oven with some cinnamon sugar and just make a snack out of it.
Oh, it's so pretty.
So, like I said, we've got those harsh edges. It's gonna cut itself. But
Because a pie dish slopes like this
Right.
and is open.
right. But we anticipated it would do that. So it's all right. Okay.
Do you have a picture, as long as I promise not to like copyright it, that I could have to show them what
Oh.
one of your pies looks like when you have the right dish?
I will send you as many pictures as you want. I'm not concerned.
'Cause even just the one you made last night, I looked at it and I'm just like, oh my goodness, is it Martha Stewart that does like
Yeah.
all the fancy home gorgeous, oh I can't eat that, it's too pretty.
So we love to get the cookie cutters out and go all out. It's really fun. And I've actually even pulled off a lattice crust
Oh,
with
I think
this.
I saw that.
You've got pictures of it up, don't you?
I do, yeah. It's all over my Facebook page.
So that's Road to the Farm on Facebook. That's where I've seen most of Melanie's pictures.
That's where you'll find me more than anywhere else right now. So I am all the other places, but that's where I am the most. So what I just put in there is a mix of potato starch and sugar. Cherries have so much moisture in them, so you have to put a fair bit of thickener in there. And they're very tart, so there's a fair bit of sugar. I use raw cane sugar always. We're gonna go ahead and heat this up on the stove, and we're gonna bring it to a more gelatinous stage. It's just gonna work a lot better,
Okay.
and it's gonna be a little kinder. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll dump it in and we'll top it.
So one of the things for people out there who may be, oh, what is it called? Starts with an H. Can't have nightshades. Not Hiroshima. It's an autoimmune disorder where they Hashimoto's. We use tapioca pearls in ours, and it works the same as potato starch. So there are lots of different starches you guys can use out there as thickeners, if you know that you can substitute back and forth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, potato starch and tapioca starch are completely compatible, interchangeable, 100%.
Or arrowroot. Are there other things?
Yeah, you can use arrowroot. You can use cornstarch. Be careful that it's not GMO, and be careful that you don't have a corn sensitivity. You can use arrowroot starch. You can even use my flour blend to thicken it. But with cherry, since we are going for all of the right senses, then I like to use a starch because you get the clear liquid. And so
it doesn't look cloudy and kind of brown.
Yep. Okay, so we have now thickened our pie filling, and we'll see how big the container is. I think it's going to be about right. But whatever you don't use, I don't know about you, I just eat it with a spoon. It's my favorite. But you could certainly put it away. And don't can it because it doesn't have the clear jello that you're supposed to have in there for canning. But you could freeze it and reuse it. So I'll pour our pie filling in there. We did thicken it because cherries have so much liquid. They can break down your pie crust a little bit. But that's the same with conventional pie crust as well. Oh, looks pretty good to me.
You may have done this before.
It looks so good. That's my favorite, cherries. And then, let me clear this off here. So now we want to transfer this crust onto our pie. Now if we were going to try to do anything fancy with it, then we would chill it just a little bit so we could cut it and do all kinds of stuff, but we're definitely going for a rustic look here in this dish, so I think that should be perfect. It's super important to vent it, because otherwise it's just going to explode and break. Okay. So we want to give it lots of opportunities for that steam to escape out of there. Okay, so this crust actually holds up well enough. You can egg wash and dust with sugar if you want to, or just bake it this way, but it's ready to go.
All right. Just don't stab each other, please. That would not add to the ambiance of the video.
Oh, and here comes the next one. Oops. Okay. So here is the beautiful pie. I am super excited. I'm really hoping that in time, Melanie has a minute to make us a paleo flour blend, because the girls can eat this, but I have a reaction that gives me blisters if I eat rice. But the beauty of what you do is that you can you seem to have a different method for everything that you make. So maybe with the paleo, you'll invent some really cool underwater, hold your breath, stand on one foot method.
No, we want it to be easy.
Right? But it's beautiful, and I'm excited, and we're gonna let the girls eat it because they don't react to the rice the same way that I do. But you can see, this is the kind of thing that I would make because I don't have the proper tools. So I'm going to put some pictures in of things that Melanie has finished that are the way that pies are supposed to look in the appropriate pans. I think it's beautiful, but if you've seen Melanie's pictures of what she creates in her own kitchen with the right tools, you'll understand where I'm kind of like, you really need to go see what she does, because they are amazing. So Melanie from Road to the Farm, I will get you some B-roll of the girls eating some of this wonderful, beautiful pie. And thanks for popping in, and I'm just really excited. I'm excited that in the world there is some scrumptious food that looks like what Grandma made that isn't going to make you sick if you have, autoimmune issues or allergies to certain things. I'm really stoked.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks for coming. In our busy world, women don't get to sit in the kitchen and cook together that often, so this was a real treat for me. So thanks for popping in. We'll talk to you later.
I like my bouncy ball, except I get all excited when I start bouncing.
I know, so do I.
I'm like, oh, this is really, oh, and I didn't have it ready.
Right, and then we forget that we're on camera.
Is it actually going?
Yeah.
Okay. And my butcher, we were on such a roll too.
Yeah.
Is that my child?
Oh, it's mine. To empower our, and then I forgot what I was doing.
Head on position. It always ended up.
Start over because this. I
so much
have to start
work.
doing this when I get.
I don't. How am I going to say this? I'm trying.
No, I didn't breathe
No.
yet.
Okay, don't breathe.